How to talk to anyone. English conversation skills for everyday life. Chapter 1. The first 30 seconds. How to start any conversation. Have you ever stood near someone at a party or waited in a line at a coffee shop and thought, I want to say something, but I don't know how to start? Maybe you opened your mouth, then closed it again. Maybe you just looked at your phone and hoped the moment would pass. You are not alone. Starting a conversation is one of the hardest things for most people. Not just people learning English, but people everywhere, in every language. The beginning is the scary part, and there is a very good reason for that. Why the first moment feels so big. Our brains are built to look for danger. Thousands of years ago, meeting a stranger could mean real trouble. So even today, when you see someone new, your brain asks a very fast question. Is this person safe? Will they like me? What if I say something wrong? This happens in seconds, and it makes us freeze. But here's something interesting. Research shows that people decide how they feel about you in the first few seconds, not the first few minutes, not after a long conversation. In the first 30 seconds, maybe even less, a person gets a general feeling about you. And that feeling is mostly based not on what you say, but on how you appear when you say it. This is actually good news because it means you don't need a perfect sentence. You don't need a clever joke or a smart question. You just need to show up in the right way. The 3 things that matter most. Before you say a single word, 3 things are already speaking for you. The first is your body. When you walk into a room or when you approach someone, your body tells a story. If your shoulders are down, your eyes are on the floor, and you look like you want to disappear, people feel that. They don't think about it consciously. They just feel a little uncomfortable around you. But when you stand up straight, when your shoulders are relaxed and open, when you move without rushing, you look calm. And calm is attractive. Calm says, I'm comfortable here. I am not a threat. I'm someone worth talking to. You don't need to be tall, you don't need to be handsome or beautiful. You just need to take up your space with confidence. This is something you can practice right now, today, before you speak one word of English. The second is eye contact. Eye contact is powerful. In many cultures, looking someone in the eyes means, I see you, I am here, I am paying attention. When you avoid eye contact, people feel ignored, or they think you are nervous, or they think you don't like them. Of course, too much eye contact is also uncomfortable. You don't need to stare like a cat watching a bird. A natural rule is this. Keep eye contact for about 3 to 5 seconds, then look away naturally, then come back. This feels comfortable for both people. When you first see someone you want to talk to, try this. Look at them, make eye contact, and let a small smile happen. Not a big performance smile, just a natural, easy smile that says, hey, I see you. This is nice. That smile, with eye contact, is already half of a good first impression. The third is your voice. When you finally speak, the sound of your voice matters as much as the words. A voice that is too quiet makes people lean in with effort, and after a few seconds, they stop trying. A voice that is nervous, fast, high, and shaky makes the other person feel nervous too. The goal is a voice that is calm and clear. Not loud, not fast. You don't need to speak like a radio presenter. You just need to slow down a little more than feels natural to you. When we are nervous, we speed up. Slowing down tells your brain everything is fine. And it tells the other person the same thing. What to actually say? Okay, your body is open. You made eye contact. You smiled. Now, what do you say? Here is the truth that nobody talks about. It almost doesn't matter. The content of your opening line is much less important than people think. What matters is that you say something, that you make a move. Most people are waiting for someone else to go first. When you go first, you immediately become the more confident person in the room. even if your sentence is simple, even if your English is not perfect. But let's give you some tools anyway. The easiest opening is an observation. Look around. Find something true. Say it out loud. That's it. It's really busy here today, isn't it? This coffee is taking a while. I love this place. Have you been here before? That looks delicious. What did you order? These sentences have something important in common. They are about the shared moment. Both of you are in the same place at the same time, experiencing the same thing. That shared experience is a natural bridge between two strangers. You're not asking for personal information. You're not making a big statement. You are just saying, hey, we're both here. Isn't that something? The second tool is a compliment, but a specific one. General compliments can feel empty or even strange from a stranger. You are so beautiful. That's too much, too fast. But a specific, real compliment about something a person chose, not something they were born with, feels warm and genuine. I love your jacket. Where did you get it? Your bag is really cool. Is that a local brand? You have a great energy. Have we met before? Notice the last one. Have we met before is one of the most classic conversation starters in the world because it gives the other person a reason to look at you, to think, to respond. Even when the answer is no, the conversation has already started. The third tool is to ask for help. People love to help. It makes them feel useful and good. And asking for help, even with something small, is a completely natural way to talk to a stranger. Excuse me, do you know if this bus goes to the center? Hey, do you know a good place to eat around here? Can I ask, is this seat taken? These are low pressure. The other person doesn't need to give a long answer, but sometimes they do. And suddenly, you're in a conversation.
The magic of using someone's name. If you already know the person's name, maybe you were at a work event or someone introduced you earlier, use it. Use it early. Nice to meet you, Sarah. So, David, how do you know the people here? Why? Because hearing your own name feels personal. It tells the other person, you are not just anyone to me. I remembered you. This is a small thing that makes a big difference. And if you don't know their name yet, ask. Ask early and ask with a smile. By the way, I don't think we've met. I'm Alex. Then wait. They will give you their name. Say it back once. Sarah, great to meet you. Now you have a name. Use it once or twice in the conversation. Not too much, that becomes strange, but once or twice feels warm and real. What if you get a short answer? Sometimes you try to start a conversation and the other person gives you a very short answer. Yeah, or I don't know. And then silence. This feels like rejection, but most of the time it isn't. Some people are shy. Some people are having a hard day. Some people are just surprised that someone is talking to them and they need a second to open up. If you get a short answer, try one more gentle question, just one. Oh, so is this your first time here? Have you been waiting long? If they give another short answer and turn away, that's fine. Not every conversation is meant to happen, but very often that second question is enough to unlock something. The person relaxes, they smile, and the conversation begins for real. The key is not to panic after a short answer. Silence for 2 or 3 seconds is completely normal. You don't need to fill every moment with words. Comfortable silence is actually a sign of confidence. A quick story. Imagine you were at a language exchange event. You walk in, you don't know anyone. There's a woman standing near the window, holding a coffee, looking at her phone. You could stand on the other side of the room and wait for something to happen, or you could walk over, stand next to her, and say, "First time here?" 3 words, that's all. She looks up. "No, actually, I come every month. You?" "First time. I wasn't sure what to expect." It's pretty relaxed, honestly. People are friendly. And now you are talking. Now you have a connection. Now the rest of the evening is easier because you are not a stranger anymore. You are someone she already knows. That conversation started with 3 words and a little courage. Before you move on, the first 30 seconds of any conversation are not about being perfect, they are about being present. Show up with open body language, make easy eye contact, smile like you mean it. Say something, anything, real and simple. Use the other person's name when you can. You don't need a script, you don't need to be funny or brilliant. You just need to take one small step toward another person. The rest will follow.
So you started the conversation. You said something, the other person responded, and now you are talking. Great. But after a few seconds, a new fear appears. What do I say next? Most people think that being good at conversation means being a good talker, someone who always has a funny story, a clever comment, a new topic ready. But that is not true. The best conversationalists in the world are not the loudest people in the room. They are the best listeners. This chapter is about what happens after hello and why listening is the most powerful skill you will ever learn. The biggest mistake people make. When you're in a conversation, what are you thinking about? Be honest. Most of the time, while the other person is talking, we're not really listening. We're waiting. We're thinking about what we want to say next. We're preparing our answer, our story, our opinion. And while we do that, we miss most of what the other person actually said. The other person feels this, not always consciously, but they feel it. They feel like they're talking at you, not with you. And slowly, without knowing why, they start to enjoy the conversation less. Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine someone who looks at you when you talk, who nods, who asks a follow-up question about something specific you just said, who remembers a detail you mentioned 3 minutes ago and brings it back. How does that feel? It feels incredible. It feels rare because it is rare. When you make someone feel truly heard, they don't just like the conversation, they like you. They think you're interesting, warm, and intelligent, not because you said something brilliant, but because you paid attention. How to actually listen. Listening sounds passive, like you just sit there and wait, but real listening is active. It takes energy and focus. Here's what active listening looks like in practice. First, put away the distractions. This sounds obvious, but it is harder than it seems. If your phone is on the table, part of your brain is watching it, even if you don't touch it. Studies show that just having a phone visible during a conversation makes both people feel less connected. Put it away, face down, in your pocket, in your bag. This small act sends a powerful message. You are more important than my phone right now. Second, use your face. When someone is talking to you, your face should respond, not in a big, dramatic way, just naturally. Raise your eyebrows when something is surprising. Smile when something is warm. Nod slowly when you understand. These small reactions tell the speaker, I'm with you. Keep going. Without these signals, a speaker feels like they're talking to a wall. They get nervous. They speak faster or shorter. They want to stop. Third, don't interrupt to share your own story. This is the hardest one. When someone says something that reminds you of your own experience, the instinct is to jump in immediately. Oh, that happened to me too. One time I was, and suddenly the conversation is about you. This doesn't mean you should never share your own stories. Of course you should. That's how two people connect. But wait, let the other person finish their thought. Let there be a small pause. Then respond to what they said before you move to your own experience. The difference is this. I was so nervous at my first job interview. Oh yeah, me too. My first interview was a disaster. I remember I wore the wrong shoes and I was so nervous at my first job interview. That sounds really stressful. What happened? And then, after they tell you, I had a similar experience actually. See the difference? In the second version, you showed interest first. You asked what happened. You gave them space. And only then did you bring in your own story. Now it feels like a real exchange, not a competition. The power of questions. If listening is the foundation, questions are the walls. Good questions keep a conversation alive. They show curiosity. They open doors. But not all questions are equal. There are two kinds of questions: closed questions and open questions. A closed question has a short, simple answer. Did you enjoy the movie? Yes. Do you live near here? No. Was the food good? It was okay. These questions are not bad. They're useful at the beginning to get basic information. But if you only ask closed questions, the conversation feels like an interview, or worse, like a form at a doctor's office. An open question invites the other person to think and share. What did you think of the movie? How long have you lived in this area? What was the food like? Open questions start with words like what, how, why, tell me about, what was it like? These words open a door. They say, I want to know more. I am curious about you. And here is the secret weapon, the follow-up question. A follow-up question is a question about something specific the other person just said. It shows that you were really listening. It takes the conversation deeper. I grew up in a small town in the mountains. Oh, what was that like growing up? Did you ever want to leave? I've been learning Spanish for 2 years. 2 years? What made you start? I had a pretty crazy week at work. What happened? Those 2 words, what happened, are some of the most powerful in any language. They invite a story, and people love to tell their stories. The art of going deeper. Most conversations stay on the surface. 2 people talk about the weather, about work, about what they did last weekend, and then they say goodbye and forget each other. The conversations we remember, the ones that feel real, go a little deeper, not in a heavy or uncomfortable way, just below the surface. There is a simple technique for this. You can think of it as going one level down. When someone tells you a fact, ask about the feeling or the meaning behind it. Fact: I just moved to a new city. One level down. That's a big change. How are you finding it? Do you like it so far? Fact: I work in marketing. Is that something you always wanted to do, or did you kind of end up there? Fact: I have 3 kids. 3? That must be busy. Do you enjoy it, or is it completely exhausting? And then smile so they know you are not being rude. These questions go from information to experience, from what to how it feels. And that's where real connection happens. Of course, you need to read the situation. Not everyone wants to go deep with a stranger at a bus stop, but in a relaxed setting, a dinner, a social event, a long flight, these questions are gold. What to do when the conversation goes quiet? Silence in a conversation feels dangerous. When there's a pause, most people panic. They say the first thing that comes to their head. They change the subject randomly. They make a bad joke. They pull out their phone. But silence is not the enemy. A short pause, 2, 3, 4 seconds, is completely normal. It just means both people are thinking. It means the conversation is real, not rushed. The best thing you can do in a moment of silence is stay calm. Keep eye contact, maybe smile a little, and wait. Often, the other person will speak first, and what they say in that moment, when they feel the silence themselves, is often something more honest, more personal, more interesting than what they would have said if you rushed them. If the silence goes longer and you want to move things forward, use a soft, curious question. Not a dramatic topic change, just something natural. So, what are you up to this weekend? Have you always lived in this city? What do you do when you are not working? Simple, easy, a bridge from the quiet moment back into conversation.
Mirroring, the invisible connection tool. There's one more technique that is so simple and so powerful that it almost feels like a trick. It is called mirroring. Mirroring means repeating the last few words someone said, in the form of a question or just as a statement with a rising voice. I've been really stressed lately. Stressed? I don't know, something just feels off.
Something feels off? I'm thinking about moving to Portugal. Portugal? That's it. You just repeat a few words, and something almost magical happens. The other person feels heard. They feel like you are paying attention, and they almost always continue. They go deeper, they explain more, they open up. This technique is used by therapists, by negotiators, by journalists. It works because it creates space. It says, "I heard what you said. Tell me more," without actually saying those words. Try it in your next conversation. You will be surprised how well it works. Sharing yourself, because it goes both ways. All of this listening, all of these questions, is not a performance. A conversation is not an interview where you are the journalist and the other person is the subject. It goes both ways. You also need to share your thoughts, your feelings, your stories. This is what makes a conversation a conversation. Two people exchanging something real. The key is balance. A rough guide. For every story or opinion you share, make sure you also ask something or respond to something from the other person's side. Give, then receive. Receive, then give. And when you share something about yourself, don't just share facts. Share a little of how you felt. Not, "I visited Japan last year," but "I visited Japan last year. It completely changed how I think about cities. Everything was so different from what I expected." The second version gives the other person something to respond to, a feeling, a reaction, a story that is still open. Now they can ask, "What surprised you most?" And you are in a real conversation. A short example. Here is how a good conversation might look when you put all of this together. You're at a small dinner with people you don't know well. You're sitting next to someone you have never met. So, how do you know the people here? Open question, easy start. "I work with Anna. We've been colleagues for about 3 years." 3 years. Do you enjoy it? Working together, I mean. Follow up, going one level down. "Yeah, she's great. Actually, we almost didn't work together. I nearly took a job in another city." Really? What happened? 2 magic words. And now they're telling you a story, a real one, something personal, and you are listening, really listening, and the conversation has gone from a polite exchange to something that actually feels good. That is the art of keeping it going. Before you move on, being good at conversation is not about talking more. It is about making the other person feel like what they say matters. Listen with your whole body. Ask open questions. Go one level deeper when it feels right. Use mirroring. Share yourself too, but with balance. When someone walks away from a conversation with you and thinks, "That was a really good talk," most of the time they can't explain exactly why. They just felt good. They felt heard. They felt interesting. That is your goal. Not to impress, to connect.
Chapter 3. Leaving a lasting impression. How to end a conversation right. Most people think a lot about how to start a conversation. Some people think about how to keep it going, but almost nobody thinks about how to end one. And that is a mistake. Because the ending is what people remember. Think about a movie you loved, or a book, or a meal at a great restaurant. The last moment, the final scene, the last page, the dessert, stays with you. It shapes how you feel about the whole experience. A bad ending can ruin something that was good, and a great ending can make something ordinary feel memorable. Conversations work the same way. The last 30 seconds of a conversation leave a mark. They decide whether someone thinks about you later, whether they want to talk to you again, whether they remember you at all. So let's talk about how to end well. Why most conversations end badly. There is a very common pattern. Two people are talking, the conversation starts to slow down, the energy drops a little. Neither person knows what to do,
So one of them starts to look around the room. They check their phone. They say something vague like, well, yeah, so, and then they just kind of drift away. No real goodbye, no real ending, just a slow, awkward fade. The other person is left feeling a little empty, not because the conversation was bad, but because it ended without intention, without warmth, like a song that just stops in the middle, no final note, no resolution. Or the opposite happens. Someone wants to leave, but they don't know how, so they stay. The conversation goes on too long. Both people start to feel tired. By the time they finally say goodbye, the good energy from earlier is gone. What started well ended with exhaustion. Both of these are very common, and both are easy to fix. The golden rule of ending a conversation. Here is the most important thing to understand about ending a conversation well. Leave before you want to. Not when you are bored, not when the energy is gone, not when there's nothing left to say. Leave while things are still good. This sounds strange. Why would you end something that is still enjoyable? Because when you leave at the right moment, when the conversation still has energy, when both people are still engaged, you freeze that feeling. You walk away when things are positive, and that positive feeling is what the other person carries with them when you're gone. There's a famous idea in restaurants: always leave the guest wanting a little more. The best meal ends just before you are completely full. The best conversation ends just before you have said everything. This takes a little courage, because in the moment when the conversation is good, the instinct is to keep going. But the person who knows when to stop is always more memorable than the person who doesn't. So how do you know when the right moment is? You look for small signals in yourself and in the other person. In yourself, a small feeling that the conversation has reached a natural high point, a good laugh, a genuine moment of connection, a satisfying exchange. When you feel that small warmth, that is often the right moment. In the other person, watch their eyes. If they're fully on you, the conversation still has energy. If they start to glance around, at the door, at other people, at their phone, the energy is starting to leave. You want to end before that happens, not after. Also, listen for natural pauses that feel a little longer than usual. A pause where both of you smile, but neither of you has a new question. That pause is the conversation's way of telling you this is a good place to stop. When you feel or see any of these things, don't panic, don't rush, just begin your ending, warm, smooth, and intentional.
The 3 parts of a good ending. A good conversation ending has 3 parts. They happen quickly, in 30 seconds or less, but each one matters. Part 1. A signal. You give a small, soft signal that you are about to wrap up. This is not a sudden goodbye. It is a gentle shift in tone that prepares the other person. Some examples. I really need to find my friend, but before I go, I should let you get back to your evening, but I have to head out soon, but I just want to say, this signal does something important. It removes the surprise. When a goodbye comes out of nowhere, it can feel cold or abrupt. But when you signal first, the other person has a second to adjust. The ending feels smooth, not sudden. Part 2. A genuine close. This is the heart of the ending. A real, specific, warm sentence. Not a formula, not a polite nothing. Something that refers to this conversation, this person, this moment. Not, it was nice talking to you. This is fine, but it is forgettable. You could say it to anyone. Instead, try something that refers to something real from your conversation. I'm really glad we talked. That thing you said about starting over, I'm going to think about that. I didn't expect to spend 20 minutes talking about old movies, but honestly, it was the best part of my evening. You gave me a completely different way of looking at that. Seriously, thank you. These sentences do something powerful. They tell the other person, I was here, I was listening. What you said mattered to me. And that feeling of being genuinely seen is one of the best things one person can give another. You don't need to be dramatic, you don't need to be poetic. Just be specific and honest. Even one small detail from the conversation, something they said, something you laughed about, makes the goodbye feel real. The forward move. The last part is optional, but when it fits, it is very powerful. It is a small gesture toward the future. I hope we run into each other again. If you ever want to continue that conversation, I mean it. Next time you're in this area, let me know. Or if you genuinely want to stay in contact, can I give you my number? I'd love to hear how that project goes. Are you on Instagram? I want to follow that page you mentioned. The forward move says, this conversation is not just over, it is a beginning. And even if you never speak to that person again, they leave feeling like they meant something to you. That is a rare gift. When you need to leave quickly. Sometimes you don't have 30 seconds. Maybe you are at a busy event. Maybe you suddenly remember something urgent. Maybe the conversation was not great and you just need to go. That is completely okay. A short, warm exit is always better than a long, awkward one. Hey, it was so good to meet you. I'll let you enjoy the rest of the evening. I have to run, but genuinely, lovely to meet you. I'm going to grab a drink, but thank you for the chat, really. Short, warm, specific enough to feel real. Lovely to meet you is better than nothing, but even better is using their name. It was great to meet you, Tom. 2 seconds. That's all it takes to make someone feel good when you leave. The exit that leaves a door open. There's one kind of ending that is worth learning separately. It is the ending where you genuinely want to see the person again. Maybe a new friend, maybe someone interesting from work, maybe someone you felt a real connection with. Most people hope the other person will make the first move. They wait. They say vague things like, we should hang out sometime, which means nothing, and both people know it.
Don't do that. If you want to see someone again, be direct, not aggressive, just clear and warm. I really enjoyed talking to you. Would you want to get coffee sometime? I feel like we could talk for hours. Are you on WhatsApp? I'd love to keep this going. I'm going to that event next Saturday. You should come if you're free. Direct, specific, low pressure. You are not demanding anything. You are just expressing something real. I liked this. I want more of it. Most people respond very well to this because most people feel the same way, but we're also waiting for someone else to say it first. Be that person. What if the conversation was difficult? Not every conversation ends on a warm note. Sometimes there was a moment of tension, a misunderstanding, a topic that went in a direction nobody wanted, or just a conversation that felt flat, no real connection, no spark. In these cases, the ending is even more important because how you leave shapes everything the other person will remember about you. If there was tension, you can acknowledge it simply, without making it a big moment. I think we see that differently, but I really appreciate you sharing your view. I'm not sure we agreed on everything, but it was still good to hear your perspective. This is graceful. It says, I am not angry, I am not pretending everything was perfect, but I respect you and I leave with that respect intact. If the conversation was just flat, if you didn't really connect, you can still be warm. A simple, genuine, it was nice to meet you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Said with a real smile, with eye contact, and with intention. Not rushed, not cold. Even a flat conversation deserves a warm exit. You never know when you will meet that person again. You never know what they will say about you to others. Leave every conversation the way you would want to be remembered. The thing nobody tells you. Here is something that most books and courses about communication never say. You will not always do this perfectly. You will sometimes end a conversation too late, or too early, or say goodbye in a clumsy way, or forget to use the person's name, or walk away and think of the perfect thing you should have said. That is okay. That is normal.
That is what being human feels like. The goal is not perfection. The goal is intention. When you start to think about how you end conversations, when you stop treating the goodbye as nothing, just a necessary exit, you will naturally get better at it. Not because you follow a script, but because you start to care about that moment. And people feel that. They feel the difference between someone who leaves with care and someone who just disappears. Even if they can't explain it, they feel it. That feeling is your reputation. That feeling is what people carry when you are not in the room. That feeling is what makes someone say later to a friend, "I met this really interesting person last night. I don't know, they just made me feel good." That person is you. Putting it all together, you have now read all 3 chapters of this audiobook. You know how to start a conversation with open body language, easy eye contact, a simple and real opening line. You know how to keep it going by listening deeply, asking good questions, going one level below the surface, and now you know how to end it well, with intention, warmth, and a specific, genuine goodbye that leaves the other person feeling seen. These skills work in English. They work in any language. They work with strangers, with colleagues, with old friends and new ones. Because at the heart of every good conversation is the same thing: one person making another person feel like they matter. That is not a technique. That is a choice. And it is a choice you can make in any room, in any language, starting with your very next conversation. Thank you for listening to How to Talk to Anyone, English Conversation Skills for Everyday Life.